Hello! Happy Friday and welcome back to Talking Freight, the weekly freight and transportation management series brought to you by your friendly transportation management company, Cerasis. Each week, we look to bring you tips, thoughts, best practices, and trends around freight and transportation management. This week, we will begin a closer look at LTL strategies and how to optimize this surface transportation mode. In fact, Cerasis chose back in 1998 to focus on this mode as it is a lot of moving parts, coordination, and often a puzzle to effectively manage. It has a lot of opportunity for error, and that's why we saw an opportunity to help shippers with technology and solutions. We want to extend that mindset to all of our educational content as well, including this Talking Freight episode, and why we'll put some time over the next several episodes of Talking Freight focusing on the LTL mode. As you know, each year, LTL carriers typically announce an increase in their rates, and they have for many consecutive years. It's not going to change in 2018 or 2019 either. But you are not forced to just take those rates and say, I guess it just costs more. There are things you can do to mitigate your LTL freight cost, even beyond just the rate you see in your TMS. So let's talk about how you, as a shipper, can save on LTL freight shipping by covering the first 3 points of 7. In next week's video, we'll cover the final 4 factors. First, education is key. Understand the factors that go into an LTL freight shipping rate. The more you understand the factors that go into what makes up an LTL rate, which you can watch the episode where we address that here, the more likely you are to get the most accurate freight rate possible at the time of shipping. So there are no surprises on the back end causing further time, and time is money, spent on dealing with your LTL freight shipments. Some of these factors are accurately knowing weight, distance, density, desired time of shipping, and choosing the right insurance. But usually, the most overlooked but most important aspect is choosing the right freight class. If you end up selecting the wrong classes consistently because you are not understanding them, you could be leaving money on the table by actually picking a class that creates a higher rate. Need to understand freight class and how it works, especially since it's been updated to go towards a more density-based type structure? Well, you're in luck. In the description of this video, we'll leave a link to our handy printable freight class guide and density calculator so you can have a nice handy guide to get the right class for every single shipment. All right, so now we've covered factor 1. It's all about education. Factor 2, think about using multiple modes of shipping. Sometimes you may have a shipment that you think would be great for LTL. You've been shipping LTL mostly and you feel pretty confident in processing, managing, and understanding the LTL world. So you always try and choose that shipping mode. However, if your freight is oversized or near 20,000 pounds or perhaps nearing around 5 or more pallets, you may consider a volume move and get a spot quote by the carrier's rate department or through your third-party logistics provider. Additionally, you may want to look at truckload rates and see if you can find a better rate through multiple truckload carriers by consolidating your freight. Again, if you watched our handy, long, full truckload series, which you can watch by clicking up at this link above my head, the entire playlist, then you'll learn exactly how to make sure you have a mix of different modes to save costs. And the final factor we'll talk about today, outbound LTL freight shipping accounting options, understanding prepaid versus prepaid and add in outbound. Let's first talk about outbound LTL shipping. You may ship freight to small and medium-sized companies and you come to an agreement with your customer that you will sell your product on a freight, prepaid, and add basis. After all, you ship a lot of goods and probably have better freight rates than your customer. You select the carrier, you dispatch the carrier, and you pay the carrier. Then you invoice the customer for your product and for the freight charges. A surprising number of companies decide to mark up the cost of the freight charges and make an additional profit in this way. On the other hand, some companies pass on the freight charges with no markup. Those that decide to mark up the freight cost have thought it through. They feel that it's their overall shipping volumes that their customer does not have, and their hard work in making sure they have the most competitive freight rates possible that allow them to mark up the freight. They feel their internal cost of picking the product, packaging, calling the carrier, loading the freight, and the carrying cost of paying the freight invoice prior to the customer reimbursing the freight cost should be compensated in some way. This is often known as turning your LTL freight shipping into a profit center on the outbound side. This is a direct hard cost savings benefit for your shipping department. Those that decide to pass on the freight cost without markup, also known as prepaid, feel that their competitive freight rates allow them to compete with vendors who may be closer to the customer. And if they mark up the freight cost, this might not allow them to make the sale in the first place. Many think the practice of marking up freight costs is just not good business practice. But that's really up to you and how you as a company are looking at your traditional freight history, what you've been paying, and the important factor in deciding whether you should do prepaid versus prepaid NAD is all about strategy and having a holistic view of all of your freight activity and getting data in order to analyze to see how that would make an impact on your customer's experience with you. In times of capacity, of course, this can be much more challenging and dangerous if you're marking up your freight, as it's expensive enough already. However, those that have chose to do prepaid and ads sometimes have an advantage in a capacity crunch because their customers are used to paying that extra cost. And so an increase in freight may decrease that profit center a little bit and those margins you're making, but it's not too surprising to your customer because you've already absorbed that in your previous profit margins. You're absorbing those increased freight costs for yourself, and there's no impact on the customer. So those who had a prepaid NAD program in place already might be finding that during this capacity crunch as freight rates rise, that they're not having any impact when it comes to their customers. So those are things that all LTL shippers should consider. All right, well that's it for this week's episode as we covered the first 3 areas to look at to save on LTL shipping. Next week, we'll cover the final 4 of 7 we have to offer up. But do you have any questions right now we can answer? Ask them right down in the comments below here on this YouTube video. Our experts will come in and provide the best answers possible. And if you enjoyed this video, we'd love for you to join Team Cerasis and hit that subscribe button and then this little bell icon. That way, if you have the YouTube app, you'll get a notification of every video we publish on Friday or via email. And hey, would you like to join us on social media? I bet you're already on Facebook. I'm sure you tweet. Are you a big grammer on the Instagram? If not, start taking pictures of your food today and let everybody know what you had for dinner for the next week. It's kind of fun, or not. May not be your thing. So I hope you check us out on Instagram too. At any rate, maybe you don't like social media or you prefer to get our great educational content via email. I get it. Makes it a lot easier. We're going to give you at least one good educational article every Monday through Friday. We'll probably send you our weekly podcast that we've just released called the Freight Project Podcast. We'd love for you to listen in to our unique experts' insights. And finally, of course, every Friday, we publish Talking Freight, so on Saturday, we'll email you the latest episode. So, if you do want to subscribe and get our emails, make sure you go to Cerasis.com. Scroll a little bit down the way, and you'll see a box pop up just like you do now right here on this video. Put in your email, hit the subscribe button, and we'll send you all of our great content. Thanks again for tuning in each week here on Talking Freight. We'll see you next week, and have a great weekend.